Hello everybody. It is Wednesday the 25th of December. It's Christmas Day and I'm still hoping for the light to enter into the consciousness of that is humanity. I want to talk about whether this is a simulation, and I don't, in a way it is. Simulations as an imitation of a situation, an action of pretending and deception. It most certainly is that. And in computer terms, a model of something for the purpose of a study. Something is studying us, I think, yes. But it is not a detached scientific kind of study, for the sake of gaining knowledge, but they're studying us in order so that they can come and rule over us. Knowledge is power. In that way, they are studying us. And if you say simulation, it does give the feeling to many people, including myself, that this is not real. And I'd say this is very real, and I think we're playing for keeps. And I really think we need to wake up to that. This is not pretend. This is real. It is creating an outcome for humanity. So, and then really, we need shift of perception of what it is we are and what it is we're in. And I think the biggest shift of perception that can happen right now is our perception of this book that is the Bible. What is it we're actually looking at? Because for most people, it says the Bible is the Word of God. Yeah? It is the knowledge of God. God is an almighty being. God's will must be done. That is the perception with which they are going into that book. So if you shift that slightly, whilst approaching that book and saying, no, this is the knowledge of good and bad. This is a teaching that shows you the knowledge of good and bad. You enter into that book. You eat a fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And you are the one, you are the student that is supposed to discern. Yeah? I think that would be the right perspective to enter into that teaching. You're supposed to discern good and bad. Because to my mind, that is exactly what Jesus did. That is the knowledge he brought, the knowledge of good and bad. He ate of that tree. And that is to say, he entered into the tree of life, which is an expanded awareness of reality. But he did not enter into it as an empty vessel, but with a clear intention of gaining a knowledge. And that is exactly it. Because that is what he showed. If you have a human understanding of good and bad, that is what he showed. Good and bad. So, coming back with the knowledge, first of all, the revelation of ourselves and the goodness that is in us and what we can actually do on those good energies. Yeah? The changes that we can create in reality, in the fabric of reality itself. For healing, for feeding, for whatever it is we need, we will be given. That was the knowledge of good. And then came the knowledge of bad. Again, if you go in something asking a question like good and bad, you will obviously get two answers. You will. It's not a straightforward question. It can't be answered with yes or no. So you will be given two answers, and you will probably be given several examples. That is what this world is. You've been given several examples of good or bad. People still don't see it. So the other knowledge, the knowledge of the other side, was New Jerusalem. Well, in the very outcome, it is New Jerusalem. We should not even go there. It is the Borg cube hanging in the sky, coming to rule over the world. Yeah. But there were many steps on the way, even in the teachings, were slight deviations from the truth, from goodness, until in the very end, that will be the outcome. That is full on evil. But the way it is in the book, the way it's spoken, is because Jesus said, "For myself, I say nothing." Yeah, I don't think for myself, because if he's channeling the other side, so to speak, to bring knowledge of the other side, then yes, at that moment his consciousness his conscience has to step aside. His conscience as well as his judgment has to step aside for him to become an open channel for the words that will come from that side. So yes, for the purpose of channeling the knowledge of something that is not of this world, he clearly said that. It's alien. It's a kingdom that is not of this world. So for the purpose of channeling, his consciousness has to step aside to bring the knowledge into this world, the words. He did that. But again, he clearly said, "I am not the one speaking." Yeah, he clearly said that. "I'm not the one speaking. This is the voice of the Father, the knowledge of the Father." Again, it's something many do not understand when we say it is Jesus. No, and in that moment it was not Jesus. That was the whole point. It wasn't him speaking. And then really given directions and given teaching spoken from that other word. And again, we should discern whether that is good or bad. We are the student. This is not an imposing of will, or it shouldn't be an imposing of will. This is a teaching. You are the student. You are supposed to discern what is actually being said there. Now, one of the things that this other voice said, most definitely said, was, "Bring the children unto me, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And that's actually a great knowledge of our species and how we operate. And that is that from the age of 0 to 7, we are being programmed. Yeah, we take in information, and whatever we learn at that time will set us up for life, so to speak. But that was again the other voice speaking. This is what you should do. Bring the children. Program the children. And especially Christian churches, they are doing that. Big style. Yeah? They're taking the programming of their children very, very seriously. Again, programming them with what should actually have been the knowledge of evil. They're programming them with that as good. So, and there are many other things in that book where you must see that was not a human voice speaking. That was Jesus being an open channel. That is why he didn't think for himself, to bring the knowledge into the world, for us to discern, which we're not doing. So we're going toward destruction, because we're doing the completely wrong thing, calling good evil and evil good, turning the entire world on its head, denying ourselves, big style. So we're going toward destruction, we're going toward what is, for many, Judgment Day. God will come and rule over us. I said my work colleague, who's a Jehovah's Witness, she keeps telling us, oh, God will come and rule over us because humanity is incapable of ruling over itself. We're just not capable of doing it. And I'm wondering if in some way it's been spun that way. We're being driven that far into destruction until something says, see, I told you. You can't do it for yourself. Yeah, you might as well accept that you are completely incapable of looking after yourself. Being driven into that acceptance that we are nothing. We need to be ruled over. We have not a clue what it is we're doing. But the thing is, bring the children onto me. If a species is being programmed, because it can be programmed, and that is just a part of ourselves that we need to accept. We are like that, and we need to work with that. We need to be aware of that. And we ourselves must decide what it is we're actually going to do with that, concerning our own children. But out of that knowledge, as I said, you're programming something from childhood, before it has got the ability to discern. Then is that a fair judgment? If you're deliberately doing that. And then you turn around and say, well, you can't look after yourself. Is that then a fair judgment? For me, that is like entering into a game of cards when the deck has been stacked against you from the start. And then what? When you lose the game, it's, well, you were a bad player? No, you weren't. You never had a chance. So I would not accept that judgment, because it has been given by something that deceived us to start with, and deceived children. Deceived children. That is the really biggest sticking point for me. If there's something out there that wants to show us that we are completely incapable, that we are nothing, pick on something your own size. Pick on an adult. Pick on something that can have discernment. Don't pick on children. That does not make you great. So really, I really think for this ship to turn around just before we hit the rocks, and we will hit the rocks, we need a different perception. And there is really, quite simply, if you go toward that book, not saying it is the word of God, and it must be done, and you just don't know anything, go at it saying it is a knowledge of good and bad, and you are the student that is entering into the teaching, and you're supposed to discern out of the knowledge of yourself. And then there's obviously another thing, and that is that children should be nowhere near that book. Nowhere near. This is for adults. This is for adults that still are capable of discerning for themselves, which means they have not been indoctrinated into the wrong thinking from the start. Because by then, by the age of 7, they can't think anymore. This is a book for adults that are still free to think for themselves. And then let's have a discussion about what it actually says in that book and what it means for us as humanity. Just this little shift. I think it is all that it would take for people to wake out of the delusion that this is the word of God, the only truth. That is never what it was to start with. That is not the knowledge that Jesus brought. He brought the knowledge of good and bad. And right now Christians are calling bad good, because they've been indoctrinated into that. And they have no more discernment. And yeah, then is this a test? Well, if it is a test, it was set up to fail from the start. So again, I would not go by the test results. I really wouldn't. I would reject the entire thing. Start again. In our own knowledge. Anyway, here folks, I think I'll leave it at that for today. But really, I mean, whatever Jesus speaks, you need to discern. And quite often he was an empty channel. Yeah? With no human discernment standing in the way of the words. And the words were quite often pure deceptive and pure evil, but in order to bring this knowledge into the world, he could not stand against it. But if you follow that way of just taking it and taking it as truth, being programmed, then Jesus again showed you exactly where that would lead to. Destruction of self. Self-sacrifice. No longer valuing life. That's what it will lead to. We're getting there. We need to get out of it. Here, I leave it at that for today, and I talk to you again soon. Bye.